Hello everyone and welcome to News with Nat, a news show that'll keep you informed in just a few minutes. And I'm your host, Natalie Moreau. On today's show, we're talking politics. If you haven't heard, the United States is approaching another presidential election. Come January, the presidential nominees will start to narrow. And I want to make sure you're informed about all the candidates before hitting the polls. The Democratic Party might receive a shakeup in their current pool of presidential hopefuls. Former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg is expected to file the paperwork necessary to run as a Democratic nominee in the presidential election. The billionaire may pose a threat to former Vice President Joe Biden, given his financial assets and Biden's lack of campaign funding. Bloomberg has considered running in the past, both in 2016 and earlier this year, but decided not to follow through both times. Deval Patrick, former governor of Massachusetts, announced Thursday that he is too running. He filed his paperwork for the New Hampshire primaries on the same day. Slow feet don't eat, so if you want to stay informed on who is running, do your research before you head to the polls and visit each candidate's campaign website. The public hearings for the impeachment inquiry started November 13th. The topic for the first day surrounded President Trump's relationship with the Ukraine and whether or not the president was looking out for our country's best interest, or rather, his own agenda. The complaint stemmed from a conversation Trump had with the president of the Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, about his Democratic presidential opponent, former Vice President Joe Biden. In the phone call, Trump asked Zelensky to look into any wrongdoings committed by Biden. U.S. Ambassador Bill Tiller spoke during the hearings and revealed that another conversation between President Trump and Zelensky occurred a day after the initial Ukraine call about former Vice President Joe Biden. He testified Wednesday that a previously undisclosed phone call on July 26 between Trump and Gordon Sondland, the U.S. ambassador to the European Union, in which the president asked about, quote, the investigations, end quote. Tiller said our ties to Ukraine should be focused on our foreign aid rather than personal gain, and held the same criticism during the Obama administration. Past impeachment inquiries include the infamous Monica Lewinsky scandal involving President Bill Clinton and his former White House intern. You probably heard her name in Beyonce's song Partition, but the lyric holds some history. Clinton was put on a 5-week trial through the Senate for lying under oath and obstruction of justice. 4 U.S. presidents, including Andrew Johnson, Bill Clinton, Richard Nixon, and most recently, Donald Trump, have been faced with formal impeachment inquiries. But let me be clear, these inquiries have never removed a president from office. Nixon is the only exception because he willingly resigned from his presidency before an inquiry could be put against him. The whole Watergate scandal probably had a lot to do with his decision, but that's a history recap for another time. A local organization is here to help answer your voter registration questions. Take a look at what they had to say.
I work for the Florida Immigrant Coalition.
It's an organization, and it's also like a group of organizations that basically are seeking to change the power structure in our own state here in Florida.
This statewide organization advocates for voting rights towards all people, including immigrants.
If, for example, let's say you move in the same district, but you move like a house over, and you don't update your address, people can actually go and, anybody, like a citizen could be like, okay, I wanna challenge this person that they're not voters of this district. And so they'll challenge it in a hearing, in like a city type of hearing. And if you don't show up because you didn't get the letter in the mail, or for whatever reason you don't know that this is happening, you don't show up, they can revoke your registration.
Voting rights eligibility has become an electoral issue across the country. It's a problem all too familiar to gubernatorial nominee Stacey Abrams after she lost Georgia's 2018 governor's race.
Voter suppression is real, and it affected hundreds of thousands of Georgians. And if you look at the narrowness of the margin of this election, you know that this was not a fair fight.
And in the state of Florida, we recently passed Amendment 4, giving rights restoration back to convicted felons, but soon after ruled that the felons now have to pay penalties connected to their sentence. With the laws constantly changing, it's important to know our state's voting guidelines.
You fill out this application first. It takes about 30 days for the Department of Elections to process it. And then they would send you in the mail, after about 4 to 6 weeks, they'll send you a card, and that card says your precinct and the address of the location where you can go vote. A couple of ways that you can vote. So you can either go to the polling place that's listed on your card itself, or you can vote by mail. In order to vote by mail, you have to request that, and you do that by going to the same website.
The Florida Immigrant Coalition would like to leave you with one last piece of advice before you hit the polls.
You know, when you're filling out this form, there's one section that asks if you want to add your email address. If you add your email address, they'll send you a sample ballot that looks exactly how your ballot's going to look like on election day, and you can use that to find out who your local candidates are, and you can inform yourself about what change they want to bring to your community, which is really the most important part.